Anyone believe in God? Yeah, we believe in him, right? But do we trust him? We say we trust him, but do we really trust him enough not to worry about things? I mean, for me, I'll trust him with the little things. I'll trust him for stuff like, well, maybe a little decision I have to make, or I'll thank him for the stuff I got. But I find myself tackling the really big decisions myself. And that got me thinking when I read this passage, where Jesus says, trust. All right. And I thought, wow, do I really trust him? Do I really trust him enough in those really big decisions to say, hey, you handle this? I think we spend a lot of time worrying about things, at least I do. And I got to wonder if I spent less time worrying and more time, trusting, if things wouldn't be different. And I think you'd have to agree, it's tough to trust something or someone that you can't see. But that's what we're being asked here. I mean, think of all the quotes, all the sayings out there about, seeing is believing. And, then there's don't believe everything you see. And how about you got to see it to believe it? We even teach our kids not to be trusting of what they see. We tell them don't trust everything you read in the paper, and don't trust everything you see on TV, and especially with the internet. Now we got to be really careful and tell our kids, hey, be careful out there. Don't trust everything that you see. And my dad used to tell us, I'm probably going to screw this up, it went one way or the other, but basically, believe nothing what you hear and only half of what you see. I thought, going back and thinking about all these trust issues, can anyone blame Philip for asking Jesus, hey, just show us the Father. Just show us. It's almost as if John, who's the storyteller in this passage, knew that 2,000 years later, things weren't really going to change. It's like they needed proof back then, and I'd imagine we would need proof now. I mean, can you imagine if some guy's walking down the street talking the way Jesus did? I think all of us would demand some kind of proof of this guy before we put him away in a nut house for a while. Maybe just my cynical, skeptical cop coming out in me. But that's the way it is, isn't it? Aren't we, well, at least cops, but I think in general we're a skeptical society. For us cops, we don't believe anything. Where were you last night? Well, prove it. You weren't there last night. Prove it. And I think maybe we're a reflection of society with that. We need proof. But I also don't think in reading this passage, and if you haven't read it, go back and just take a look at that first line where it starts off, where Jesus says, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and also trust in me. And it's interesting, at least for me, that there's all kind of versions and translations of the Bible. But in the majority of them, in most of them, this first verse remains almost identical to what you read. Don't let your hearts be troubled. And I guess Jesus could have said, hey, don't worry. He could have probably said, hey, don't sweat the small stuff. Maybe even, hey, if it was a contemporary Bible version, maybe don't let this run a whole lot of space in your head. I love that one. But what if we put, or at least what if we thought about this? That Jesus made sure to mention the word heart. That he made certain, at least the way John tells it, that don't let your hearts be troubled. And I got to thinking that maybe if we put this a different way, what if this read, trust in God, your hearts won't be troubled? That's an interesting spin, isn't it? So we can take our own versions of the Bible, flip them around, and make our own sentences out of them. But for most of us, we need to see it first, don't we? Philip says, show us. Show us and we'll be satisfied. Well, it's just like Mick and the rest of the Rolling Stones. Even if we get everything, we have everything we could ever imagine, we still can't get no satisfaction. And we've tried, and we've tried, and we've tried. And still, no satisfaction. Maybe the good news here is that we don't have to ride around the world doing this and signing that to get satisfaction. Maybe we just have to look inward. Maybe we just have to, maybe all we got to do is trust. Maybe that's the first step, that first step of faith that just might lead us to a God, to trust the God who says, don't let your hearts be troubled. Well, if you need any proof of that, just check your wallets or your pockets. Check out any of that U.S. currency that says, in God we trust. Well, at least between now and next week. That's it. That was a short one this week. Have a great week, everybody. God bless.